everyone. Welcome to this session of our talk show series. It is part of the Faculty of Applied Science in Indonesia Open Content Program. My name is Juliansa Zulkarnain, and I'm very honored to lead our discussions. Today, we will discuss the state and society relation and its relation to the three dimensions of governance. We are fortunate to have Professor Harald Fuhr with us today. Morning, Professor Harald Fuhr. Thanks for coming. And Professor Fuhr is currently a full professor of and chair of International Politics, Department Faculty of Economic and Social Science, University of Potsdam, Germany. His background is economic, political science, and public policy. Professor Fuhr illustrates career in various development agencies such as OECD, the World Bank, UNDP, ADB, and so forth, providing advice on public policy and climate change. He has published many articles and chapters in books on the topic, and recently he contributed to Perspective on Global Development 2019, the Thinking Development Strategy published by OECD. Very interesting work of you, Professor Fuhr. Thank you very much. And to start these sessions, Professor Fuhr, we are very familiar with your explanations on the three dimensions of governance. That is governance by government, governance with government, and governance without government. So, could you elaborate what is the distinct feature of these three dimensions of governance?
I think maybe we should briefly distinguish the words, right? So, government, of course, is part of the executive, is an actor, is one player. But there are also non-governmental organizations. Yeah. So, government is one. But the process of governance, and there's a huge debate in the literature, and there are different definitions of it, but for the purposes of our conversation, I would define it as a process that involves both state and non-state actors.
Okay.
Yeah, in providing rules of behavior, rules that societies need, but also collective goods and services, public goods, clean energy, clean climate, security, a stable sea level, etc. So the climate agenda is full of these global public goods, and global goods and public goods. Sorry. So governance is a process and government is a player. Now, the argument is you have governance, the process that can be managed exclusively by government, particularly in the security area. You have the dominance of government to provide services and provide rules. So security usually is a sector where you have governance, a process exclusively managed by government. But you also have governance with government. The process is carried out jointly by governmental organizations and non-governmental organizations. Right? And examples are usually infrastructure investment, road building, where you have the private sector participating, but also government. You have some social policies, which is run with NGOs in development, for example. But then you also have, and this is probably a little surprising, governance without government. So the process takes place mostly in absence of governance, and is purely carried out by non-governmental organizations that quasi replace or need to replace the government, which is not present. So take a lot of poor developing countries where essential health and services, education services, or maybe even security is not provided sufficiently by the government, and it's provided by self-help groups and self-help organizations that provide these services and basically jump in a, what we call functional equivalent to government and carry out these functions. So you have the three different options.
According to your explanation, it is interesting that the basic or main idea of governance about the process of interactions between state actors and non-state actors. And you clearly explained that all of these dimensions have their own characteristics. And could you please elucidate what and how do these governance dimensions shape the relationship between state and society?
Well, actually, to have these different options, you would need to have a certain freedom of civil society and non-state actors to engage in public policy, to be part of public policy. Right? In the traditional mode, governance by government, you don't need non-state actors. But in all the other two modes, you need strong non-state actors that need to be capable of articulating their interests and joining forces or working together. They need to have their resources to do that. It requires usually a certain range of economic and political freedoms to do that, including the freedom of media, press freedom, to have independent media, independent information about what the government does and what others are doing. Right? So you have certain requirements for governance with and without government, namely a strong civil society. So you see the relationship goes in both ways. The government, for governance with government, needs a strong, competent, self-organized, non-state actor, and the society. But the society also needs to be capable of collaborating. So we need to have collaborative efforts and opportunities and capacities on both sides to interact in this. So state and society should interact more. That's the message in these governance debates. But it's not automatically given in many countries, and you need to prepare the ground often for those interactions to happen.
So I tried to highlight your statement that it is not a given. I mean, the capability of non-state actor, particularly society, should be increased so they could play active role in the governance of state. So from your explanation and then for experience in the number of Asian countries and also in Western countries and some democratic countries, could you explain the global trajectory of the government dimension? Are they moving toward to the governance by government, governance with government, or now all country move forward to the governance without government?
Well, you can play a little with these words, but if you take history, the last, 5,000 years, you didn't always have government. You actually only had non-governmental organizations, and the citizens needed to get organized, right? So they were probably the majority, the larger parts of world history were governance without government, in the sense of an established. But anyway, to get back to your question, I think in the OECD world, in Europe, but in particular, you have more flexibility between these two sectors, or you try to have a strong and capable and professional government, but also the government needs to listen to people and is willing often to listen. It's not always listening correctly. So it's a capability and willingness on the government side to listen more strongly to what citizens, and citizens are also aware that they need to voice their views and opinions and criticize the government. And there is a long history of this interrelationship between the state and the society and the social contract, so to say. So sometimes citizens just protest or rebel against decisions by the government. I'm not familiar with all the different Southeast Asian countries, but of course the government needs to be ready and the civil society needs to be ready to interact. And I think that's not always the case. Also, sometimes the civil society doesn't want to cooperate with the government or doesn't feel the trust to talk to government and constructively influence the government. So that would need to be trained, and you need to have joint experience that it works and that it's for the better of all. So I don't see that. I see another partly in China, another model emerging, which is a more governance more strongly by government. Right?
Okay.
So where the broader development of a society is strongly led by the state and organized by the state, and citizens accept that. I don't see this works forever, because at one point in time governments may fail or may make mistakes. And then citizens will also be probably protesting. You see the case of Hong Kong, for example. So state-led development, a strong state, may be beneficial for a while, but maybe not over the long term. So I see these differences as I don't see a clear trend in any of these areas. I can only see different patterns which are currently coexisting. I like the European example because it's open both for more state but also more non-state actors. I think the flexibility between these different spheres is important.
You mentioned about China's type of governance, where the government play, let's say, strong role, or maybe probably dominant role. But how about in other Asian countries, such as Indonesia? What do you think about Indonesia?
Well, as I said, I'm not very familiar with all the details, but I think it's definitely more balanced than in the case of China. China is a very particular case. It has been very successful, no doubt, and I think one needs to praise the achievements of the government. But it comes at a price, and the price is the kind of freedom of citizens to decide on their own and decide and provide their own preferences. Also to change government. They are, of course, limited. So, of course, the government has a lot of legitimacy through its policies and through its achievements. But I wonder if this kind of relationship will stay as it is. In the case of Indonesia, as I said before, and many other Southeast Asian countries, I see this more in a mixed environment. Stronger civil society, or the civil society groups, non-state actors are increasing their importance. And our message from Europe would be, don't be shy of it, encourage civil societies to become more active, precisely in a time of uncertainty. What are we doing with climate change? What are we doing with digitalization? We need to have voice from below. We need to know the preferences from below. Citizens and civil society organizations, we need to listen to them, because they are there long term. Governments will come and go. So I think it's very important that we keep these channels open, including the international level. So I'm more opting for multi-level governance arrangements, where you have the international level for dialogue to learn amongst countries, but you're also learning within your own society where to go, what to do, what has worked, what hasn't. And these feedback loops are only possible within a more open, flexible, liberal environment.
Just, I think last question for Professor Fuhr. I'm a little bit triggered by explanation that about how each country has their own, let's say, path and governance dimensions. Can you a little bit explain these three dimensions? Is it kind of sequence when we talk about change? For example, that from governance by government, and they will move forward to the governance but without government, or maybe it's just type of dimension in which every country could choose whether it is appropriate for them, or what do you think about it?
I don't see a kind of a regular sequence between the two. I would say the result of these processes, particularly in Europe, has been each of these arrangements are important, is important. You need to have a capable professional state, particularly in times of crisis, but you also need leadership, right? Particularly in the important issues that I mentioned before, digitalization, decarbonization, climate change. We need a strong professional capable state that runs and establishes international norms and agreements on how to get out of the problems. But you also need flexibility down to the non-state part of your society, to non-state actors, for reasons of innovation, non-state actors are also businesses, right? So you want to encourage businesses and civil society to come up with new ideas.
Okay.
Yeah, and governments need to listen to those kind of ideas.
Okay.
Yeah? And the problem always with governments is not with public administration, but with governments. They usually have shorter time horizons. Yeah, and then they're gone, right? But the problems are long term and medium term, and they need to resolve medium to long term. So you need a strong non-state sector.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it doesn't automatically evolve, right? You need the government also to let go. Paradoxically, you need to let go to then participate and become competent. So it's kind of this idea about flexibility that I mentioned before. So, but I don't see a natural sequence. You need these freedoms on both sides to enable these different arrangements to emerge.
Okay. Professor Fuhr, it is very enriching discussion with you today, and this is a very good opportunity for us to learn from you. And then thank you very much for your explanation, for your time to share with us your knowledge and your experience. And everyone, this is our discussion with Professor Harald Fuhr. And thank you very much for watching, and hopefully all of you would learn and from Professor Harald Fuhr. See you on the next session.